I heard that. There's only one proper pronunciation, and you all know what it is. So I'm going to be talking about Winery and also some other tools that are available and up and coming. So I'm Pat Mueller. I work at IBM. I'm a Apache committer, part of Cordova, and also a WebKit contributor. So let's get going here. There's my obligatory Batman image that I added this morning. You know, sometimes your stuff breaks and you gotta fix it, and hopefully some of these tools and techniques will be of use to you. Okay, so pretty much everything I'm talking about today is only relevant for WebKit based browsers and browser widgets. And kind of, I guess, most specifically, that means these things won't work for Windows Phone 7, although I have something to say about that a little bit later. Okay, so let's get started. Winery is a project that I started about 2 years ago, and came from my work on WebKit's Web Inspector debugger. I guess I should first ask, there are people who've used Winery before? Some? Great, okay. So I worked on WebKit's Web Inspector debugger, which is very similar to Firebug. It's a great debugger now for the desktop, and I kind of thought they were moving too slowly on being able to get a remote mobile version out the door. So I thought I could probably hack some crap up and get something to work, and sure enough, it kind of did. So so I put it out there, and I think it's helped some people. So it reuses the existing user interface code from Web Inspector, so hopefully it's familiar. But there's some stuff it can't do, and most specifically, what really hurts is it does not support JavaScript source debugging, and that's just because there's no way for me to do that, really. To use Winery, you have to run a server to allow both your mobile device and your desktop, which is what you're going to be debugging on, running the debugger. You need a server for both those things to talk to. So you would either run one on your desktop, or there's some on the internet. You can find there, debug.phonegap.com is one that Adobe runs. But there's actually even a better one from Adobe if you know what you're looking for. Oh, it's not, oh, there we go. So if you Google the right thing, you can find the Adobe Shadow version, which is actually even more up to date than the debug.server, debug.phonegap.com one. If you want to install it on your desktop, which a lot of people end up doing, because even if you use one of these nice servers that are out there already for you, sometimes they're down, or sometimes you have personal network issues, and so it's handy to have this on your desktop. One of the big efforts I had last year was to port Winery from Java to Node.js. So it's all JavaScript now, runs under Node.js. So if you have Node.js installed, you can actually install it with npm. So just an npm-g install Winery. Then you'll have a Winery command that you can just run it and go. Okay, so there's another tool, and I'll be doing some demos of these things in a little bit. I'll just cover sort of what the current ground is. So there's another tool that's available called iWeb Inspector, and this is a little tool put together by Max Vertman, which allows you to take advantage of this private API that's an iOS 5 simulator. So it doesn't work on devices, doesn't work on anything but iOS 5. But there's a private API to enable remote debug. And Max actually found out about it from somebody else, but he wrote kind of a little app that you can use to hook everything up. Not everything works correctly. The DOM and CSS stuff all works. Some of the resource stuff doesn't work so well. The console doesn't quite work. But the big thing is the JavaScript source debugging works. So if you really need JavaScript source debugging, and iOS is one of the platforms you're working on, you'll want to have this capability as well. so that you can do that. And it's not just JavaScript source debugging, they also have the profiling and some of the timeline stuff as well. So it's invaluable. It's invaluable. I guess I didn't put on here. There's also, because it's just an API that you have to call to enable this private thing, there's actually a PhoneGap plugin that I have up at GitHub in the PhoneGap plugin section that you can include in your project. And if I believe it preprocessors itself out for only the simulator builds, and it does it for you, so you don't even really need to use Max's iWeb Inspector tool to do it. You can just include this plugin, and every time you run, you'll have access to the debugger. Okay, so then beyond those two complete hacks, which are awesome because there's a vacuum besides them, there's the real remote web inspector work that's gone on inside WebKit, and then Apple and Google sort of hooking it all up. RIM was the first company to actually enable it on the first playbook. And I saw that thing running at a show last year, and it's just amazing to have real web inspector going. So I believe on all the newish RIM devices, and Gord gives me a thumb up, on all the newish RIM devices you have real web inspector, so you don't need iWeb Inspector or Winery if you're on RIM devices. Should just work. Android devices, yeah, it's not so great. They've enabled the remote web inspector for the new Chrome browser, or it's built into Ice Cream Sandwich. I can't remember exactly what, but it's only at the browser. It's not in the web view, so we can't use it in Cordova, unfortunately. So if you've mocked up your environment so you can actually test in a browser, it still may be useful, but you won't be able to actually debug Cordova stuff with it, as far as I know. Somebody may say I'm lying, but I believe that's true. And then lastly, Apple. They've actually announced, as part of their announcement at WWDC, that remote web inspection will be available. And I think that's all they've said publicly, but you can find a few links to people who have played with it and probably violated their NDA with Apple by talking about it. But it's out there for you to see. This I do know. I've just looked into it a little bit. It requires iOS 6, so it's only on iOS 6. Also requires Mountain Lion because what they've done is they've enabled desktop Safari to have the support in there to do the connection. So you can't use Chrome to connect to it. You have to use Safari, and it's only on Mountain Lion. And I'm sure it requires the latest Xcode and all that stuff. And then any discussion about it, and Max Furtman has some discussion about it up at the confidential Apple forums covering iOS 6. So there is some discussion, but unless you've signed up for the dev thing, you won't have access to it. But so that's good for iOS, at least. In the near future, we'll have a real remote web inspector as well. Okay, so I got a few demos of this stuff. And I'm going to be demoing Winery and iWeb Inspector. And I pretty much set all this up ahead of time. I don't want that. So let me do, how am I doing that? It looks like my console window. There we go. That's the right one. So let me start up Winery. And again, once you install it, it's just on your, available at your command line if you did a global install. Use the V flag for verbose, so it spits out a lot more information. So you do that, and then you kind of forget it, although if you run into problems, this may give you some information which probably won't make any sense to you, but might make sense to me. You can report it to me. And then let me fire up my simulator. Now this is going to be fun. Let's see, can I shrink this window? Okay, well, all right, well, that'll do. Okay, so we got that. Now here's the real issue. is see if I can get the web inspector interface to fit. So the way you use Winery is that you're debugging on your desktop and you have to inject some code into your application, a script tag. And then you start running your app. And this works with both plain old web pages running in Safari as well as Cordova. This is a Cordova app. And I've added the Winery bits in there. Okay, so it's running. And then I'm going to connect to the client here. And here it is. Now, let's see if this is probably not going to work out so well. Oh, it's not actually connected. Let's connect to it. Okay, now we're connected. And then you'll see some of the kind of familiar things from Web Inspector. So as you mouse over elements in the debugger, it is showing you highlights and the various rectangles you'll see, for instance, for elements. And Winery will run on a real device as well, not just the simulator, but the iWeb Inspector is simulator only. Once you get in here, you can do various kind of editing. I can say this is actually a pink H1, and it'll change to pink, although it's not pink yet. And so then I'll change it to pink, and it becomes pink, or at least I guess became invisible for you, but and change it back. So there's all sorts of the usual kind of things that you can play with your elements in CSS, delete stuff, add stuff, etc. What else do we got? Show you databases and local storage bits. And when I click a little button on here, we can see some activity. And I think things get added to this database. And you can do SQL. You can execute SQL statements and stuff like that in here. And then local storage is also editable to some extent. Also shows some network activity bits. So let me stop this so we can actually see something here. If I click on one of these, I'll show you as much of the header information that I can get out of the request. So you'll see some of the headers in a weird, kind of unusual format, but easy to translate in your head anyway. And then also the content, if it's something that I can render, you'll see that as well. And those are XHR requests. There's a timeline, so let me start my little interval thing up here. And as we have the timer on, then we'll see a bunch of things show up in the timeline. The send request is an XHR, and it sort of tells you how long it took and that kind of thing. And then lastly, there's a console where you can do interaction, like my usual thing is document, and you'll see, I don't know if you can tell, especially since it's so low, but it's doing code completion here as I type document body, style dot background color equal, let's do black. And that'll change automatically. Then we can set that back. So that's Winery. And, okay, so that's stopped. And then let me show you iWeb Inspector. So I have another app on here. How do I switch apps now? My button disappeared. What's going on? I'm going to have to actually practice playing with this thing at low resolution. Button's still gone. I don't understand. How do I go back? Home. There we go. Okay, so this is the same app. I took out the Winery script thing, and I added the, I think it's called Web Inspector plugin that I wrote to the Cordova app. So the app looks just the same, and we'll go to its special web page and see if it comes up. There we go. So again, sort of once the app starts running, then you'll start seeing things, and it's very, very similar in terms of elements. You actually get the sort of real kind of highlighting that they give you instead of my fake version, although mine's more colorful. The resource stuff is pretty much almost completely broken, although, and this is kind of a bad example, you can't actually see some of the individual resources as part of your app in here that Winery does not do, or Winery can't show you because it doesn't know. Network stuff all works the same, but you will get slightly more information out of it. I think you actually get some of the request headers. Yeah, so there's like a user agent there. Largely, that's the same stuff, though. So then the big kicker is the scripts. So I can go into my demo code here, and I'll just show you just to prove it works. I have a start stuff and a stop stuff. And so then when I click those, voila, it stopped. And I can step and do all the stuff that you're used to doing. I think it may have some problem catching errors. So that there are a few gotchas with this. It doesn't quite work with anything. The other cool thing with this is the timeline stuff is much, much better. So it's still going here. It's an interval. So if I start the timeline here, not going. Oh, there we go. Well, even though it's not doing the interval stuff for some reason, you can see some things in here that Winery wasn't able to show you. One, very interesting, is the paint one. So, Pamela was talking before about, oh, my screen went white. And while this may not tell you why your screen went white, if you're seeing some weird UI things, you may at least see that, oh, there's some paints going on, and somehow be able to help use that information to track back and find out what the problem is. So is there anything else here? Oh, profiles. So this is, in theory, cool. In practice, the WebKit profiling has always been a bit squirrely. Oh, and I'm stuck at a breakpoint, of course. Let me continue. Okay. So let me go to the profiles here. Oh, and it is recording. And let me click around here. And then you'll get, so unfortunately this display is not that great, but you'll get some profiling information. So hopefully there may be some information of interest to you here. And again, just like Pamela had written kind of her own little timing thing, you may be able to get that kind of information from here too. And you toggle between the percentages and actual millisecond timing. So sort of between Winery and iWeb Inspector, at least for iOS, you get sort of a full gamut of being able to test everything that you need. All right, so let's go back to the presentation here. One thing I wanted to just mention is that it's easy to contribute to Winery. We have people reporting bugs, and unfortunately that's through Apache, but there's not enough traffic about Winery on Twitter that it overwhelms me. So actually all you need to do is Twitter a message and include Winery in it, and I'll see it, and if it's a bug, I may pester you and I can open bugs up. But reporting bugs is awesome, and I certainly feel like that's a contribution that people can make. You can also request a new feature. I have done some feature request stuff before, just when people ask for when I get bored. And if you really want to hack some code or something, the doc could probably be replaced. I think it's a year old. At least need new screenshots. And any other information people have about odd things about the way Winery works or whatever would be fantastic. In terms of code, there's kind of two big things that come up from time to time. I'm currently using an XHR scheme to talk to the server, but it would be more efficient to use Socket.io, and we'd have a little better latency. So that would be an interesting little piece of work somebody could help out with. And then the other one is Windows Phone 7 support. And I mentioned before that this is only for WebKit browsers. I don't really know how bad this is. Since I'm using a lot of code from WebKit that's WebKit specific, there may be issues, but but we can either shim stuff or in the worst possible case, change some of the WebKit code to try to get this to work. And I'm happy to help anybody out who wants to play with it. And then if you have any other wacky ideas too, that would be cool. So for more information, this is the, and again, I'm going to reference Pamela. She mentioned the name changes and the GitHub repos and all this stuff. And I think Winery has been in like 4 or 5 GitHub repos during its life. It's currently at Apache. And so the homepage is also at Apache, and it's right here. I think if you Google Winery, this will be among the first couple hits. And pretty much everything is linked to here for downloads and source and how to report bugs and all that stuff. If you Google iWeb Inspector, this is one that does not Google well, but maybe if you add Max and FERT or something like that, you'll end up getting it. I can't even get to it right now. Or again, there's a Cordova plugin for this thing that's up at GitHub where all the other plugins work. And it's a super simple plugin to use for iOS. And I think that's it. Any questions or problem reports? Feature requests? Okay, I'll be here all day. Hit me up if anybody wants more information or does actually have bug reports or anything like that. Thanks a lot. So there's a large amount of code that gets injected. It's a significant amount of code that gets injected into the target browser or browser widget you're using that comes right from the WebKit web inspector source. That's actually one of the first things that happens after you connect. The client says, hey, I got a bunch of code I want you to run, and it does a lot of the underlying work for you. So that code was written by the WebKit guys. It never had to run on Firefox or IE or anything like that. And just like we don't run on IE, we don't run on Firefox. Some of it may be bad, like an IE does not support the getter-setter property stuff at all, at least the way WebKit did it. So that would be probably one thing we would have to change to use the object properties kind of thing. Although that, in theory, would work in Firefox, I think. So there's a handful of things. We don't know how bad it is. It's actually just a challenge to figure out what's broken because when something doesn't work, you don't have a debugger to tell you it's not working. But there are techniques we can use to help narrow down what the actual problems are. All right, thanks a lot.
Just give us a second.